And then we have a quiz. So let's see how much we can fit in. Luckily, the homework will be quite quick. All right. And so please feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions or clarifications or whatever. It will probably be easiest to just interrupt because, I don't know, if I share my screen like this, I can see I have another screen open where I see everything. But apparently, for some reason, it doesn't do the raise hands thing quite well, or the chat sometimes. So interrupting me is the safest course of action. All right, let's go. So the homework. The homework was to translate some sentences and to read a short paragraph and answer some questions about that. Well, the paragraph reading you almost all did just perfect. So we'll be mostly focusing on the first part. So we'll quickly go through the answers and then yada yada. So the first question was, dogs are not cats. You are a dog, therefore you are not a cat. Now most people did this very well. And there are quite some ways to do this. The one main thing that I noticed is that most of you used je instead of jij, which is very good. Almost always you use je. But in this case, I would suggest using jij because you are, I guess, specifically talking about a specific person, not just someone in general, right? You're talking about a specific person that is a dog and that they have the property of not being a cat. So jij is more applicable here than you. Secondly, the thing that went, well, not wrong, but was a bit tricky is this part, because we didn't really cover that, which is sentences that don't start with a subject, basically. And in sentences that don't start with a subject, almost all sentences that don't start with a subject, you have to invert the subject and the verb. So you get dus, daarom ben jij geen kat. Instead of dus, daarom jij bent geen kat. Some of you did dus, comma, jij bent geen kat. That's also good. Some people did daarom, comma, ben je geen kat. I'll count that correctly, but that's not very common in Dutch that you would do that. But dus and then a pause, say comma, that's very common, and you can do that. But if you use daarom, then you would invert it and leave out the comma. And I think one person did daarom and then comma and then the inversion, but then you can just leave out the comma. But yes, we'll see that come up a bit more. So these guinea pigs want to go to the vet. They're pretty picky pigs. You did that. You did this very well as well. Note deze cavia's en die dierenarts. Ja, cavia's with a apostrophe. Zij zijn kieskeurige cavia's. Of some of you, this doesn't include the pretty. And some you can translate pretty in quite many ways in Dutch. So some of you use nogal, which I think is the best one. You can also use redelijk or vrij. Or I think someone used een beetje, which you can use, but it's not very common. Yeah, I would use nogal. Ze zijn nogal kieskeurige cavia's. And note, that's a pretty useful thing to know, is that the E thing only happens with the kind of the last adjective in the order. So with what's the nogal vrij redelijk, which also means pretty, you would say zij zijn redelijk kieskeurige cavia's and not zij zijn redelijke kieskeurige cavia's. De redelijk is modifying the kieskeurig. It's not modifying the cavia's. If you say they are redelijke kieskeurige cavia's, you mean they are reasonable and picky pigs, which is not. They're not being reasonable. They're being pretty picky. 3. A large lion broke out of the zoo yesterday. It was a big catastrophe. Een grote leeuw is gisteren uit de dierentuin ontsnapt. Het was een grote ramp / catastrofe. Most of you did this very well, even though we have not covered the present perfect at all. Most of you did this very well. Eerst gisteren uit de dierentuin ontsnapt. Het was een grote ramp. Yeah, the one thing that I did notice, I guess, is that some people put the gisteren somewhere else. So is uit de dierentuin ontsnapt gisteren. You can do that, but that sounds a bit awkward. Uit de dierentuin gisteren ontsnapt. Usually with the time thing is pretty set. It goes after the verb usually. You can put it at the start, but then you have to invert the een grote leeuw en is. So you would get gisteren is een grote leeuw uit de dierentuin ontsnapt. And that's fine. Het was een grote leeuw. Everyone got this correct. Then 4. That horse is so hungry, she looks like she could eat a horse. So this is actually 3 sentences in one. Dat paard is zo hongerig. Yeah, that's not really something you say in Dutch. Dat paard heeft zoveel honger. Heeft zo'n honger. Heeft zo honger. Het lijkt alsof ze een paard zou kunnen eten. Het lijkt... Yeah, you could do that. I would say it seems like she could eat a horse. But I would say... ze ziet eruit alsof ze een paard zou kunnen eten. Which is what most of you did something in that direction. But this zou kunnen eten, that's pretty complicated. So if you didn't have that, kan eten is also correct. Het lijkt alsof ze een paard kan eten. That's also fine. But that is more like she looks like she can eat a horse instead of could. Could is zou kunnen, can is kunnen of kan in this case. Yes. Then 5. The rabbit is too close to that mouse. She's making him nervous. Well, everyone got this almost correct. The only thing I would mention, so I disagree with this. Some of you did this, most of you didn't. But I would say staat of zit te dicht bij die muis instead of is. In Dutch, if you're talking about spatial relations, you almost always use staan of zitten or any of hangen or liggen. And is really the case that you use if none of these really apply and also sound weird. Like for stains or something, or rooms, those things aren't really sitting or standing or lying or whatever. They're just being. And then you use is. But here I would say het konijn staat te dicht bij de muis. It's standing too close. But is not incorrect. The fly is flying to a country far away. Yeah, everyone did this correct. De vlieg vliegt naar een ver land. Of vliegt naar een land ver weg. Very good. Hippos are very fat because they are the most dangerous animal. Very logical sentence. But grammatically correct. Nijlpaarden zijn heel dik. Omdat ze het gevaarlijkste, should say here, not gevaarlijke. Het meest gevaarlijke. Yeah, you could say that. I would say gevaarlijkste. But we didn't cover comparatives much. So if you had meest gevaarlijke, that's also fine. Omdat ze het gevaarlijkste dier zijn. Now this is also kind of a weird sentence construction. Where you put the zijn all the way at the end. But most of you did this correctly. Even though we didn't cover it at all. So I was very, very proud of you. And finally, flamingos are pink, crows are black. These platypuses look pretty whack. Flamingo's zijn roze, kraaien zijn zwart. Die vogelbekdieren zien er slecht uit. I wouldn't put slecht, maar what most of you did is raar of vreemd, something like that. And then you also have a translation of pretty, like nogal of redelijk or vrij, and then it will be fine. Again, this is also kind of difficult with the R. Die vogelbekdieren zien er slecht uit. We didn't really cover this at all. But most of you still managed to do this correctly, so very good. Looks like all the Duolingoing paid off, maybe. All right, so that was the homework. It was mostly word order that was difficult. Do you have any questions about this remaining? No? Fantastic. Then we will move on to exercise 2. Well, as I said, most of you did this correct. So I won't waste many words on this. The snake was found in the bedroom. That was kind of the only difficult one. It says in the badkamer, which is the bathroom in Dutch, not the bedroom. The bedroom in Dutch is slaapkamer, the sleeping room. Otherwise, yeah, the snake was 3 meters long. Yes. Other people have seen the snake before. Have never seen the snake before. No. Here it says other people also saw the snake. And small snakes are often hiding in the sewage. Yeah, it is. They do. But a big snake of 3 meters is pretty rare. We don't have that large snakes. We have like 3 snakes in the Netherlands. We have like ringslang, which is like a snake that doesn't do anything. Then we have another snake. I don't know that one. And we have one venomous snake, the adder. Other. I'm not sure what the word for that is in English. I think it's adder, but don't quote me on that. But they don't really get very big. Definitely not 3 meters. Probably imported this one. Okay, there's enough background on the snake. Then, het woord van de week is thuis, thuis. Thuis, thuis. So literally translating to home, home. This picture doesn't make any sense here. This is what is a very common word among students, which they use to refer to their parental home. So if you say, I'm going, because often this word happened because this conversation often happened. Okay, see you guys, I'm going home this weekend. Oh, wait, you're going home to like where you live in Utrecht or to your parents? Now I'm going to my parents. I'm going home, thuis, thuis. And to avoid that conversation, we have the word thuis, thuis to make it explicit that you're going back to your parents. Or wherever, whatever you call, wherever you grew up or not grew up, whatever. Usually you refer to your parents' place with this. Yes, very useful word, I think. Okay, well then we have arrived at the fun part, which will be me ranting for a bit. And I will really try to go through this quickly. And please stop me if you think something should be explained more, because I will skip over a lot of it. This basically it includes every single slide we have had so far, so it will be a ride. All right, let's start. Consonants. I think it's worth briefly saying this again. Most consonants in Dutch are the same as in English, dus zijn hetzelfde. There's only like 5 approximately that are the same, that are different. Of course, we have the G, you all know that one. The J is je in Dutch. It's almost always je, not j, like in jam, but je. We also don't pronounce the word for jam in Dutch is also written like that. We say jam. I'm not sure why. I don't feel like that's how you would say it in French, for instance, although it sounds vaguely French. Then the R, I think that one was the thing about with regards to it being worth repeating. We have 3 R's in Dutch you can use. Again, if you didn't know, we have the proper R, which you can always use, which is rolled with your tongue. And I can't do it. I'm a bad Dutch person. No, okay. It's embarrassing if I try to do it. But imagine like an Italian or Spanish R, but then a bit shorter. That's basically it. Then we have the R that I use, which is R, which is in the back of your throat with using your uvula, which is maybe even more difficult to do if you don't know how to use it, because I really don't know how to explain how to do this. You can always also always use that one. And then we have the R, like kind of an English one, R, but a bit shorter. Which is only really common either at the end of words or syllables, I should say, or in a region to the west of Utrecht where like posh people live. So at the end of syllables, this is very common. Almost every Dutch person does that. But at the start of syllables, it's very rare and only from there. And so if you do that, then you do sound like you are from that fancy posh region, which is fine, but it is a association people have. Then the W is pronounced as wat. Pretty similar to a V, but you don't expulse any air. And then often in Dutch, the V and F are pronounced the same as an F. I do this, so I don't say this, but I say vis instead of v, because I'm lazy. And then this, I don't think is worth repeating. Is this worth repeating? I feel like you do this pretty well. So now I'll very briefly say it. We have two ways to pronounce most consonants in Dutch, vowels in Dutch. Or vowel letters. So there's a difference between a vowel, which is a sound, and a vowel letter, which is a letter. And one vowel letter can have many sounds. Because in English, or the Latin alphabet only has 5 or 6 vowel letters, if you count Y. But Dutch has 17 vowel sounds, which is quite a lot. And one way we try to distinguish between them in writing, or like, and so we need to make some nice combinations of these letters, or have some kind of rule for when this letter means a certain thing. English is really bad with this. It doesn't really have any consistent rules about when a certain combination of vowels sounds like something. Well, it does have some, but it also has not a lot, like tough and though, for instance, which are written the same at the end, but are pronounced completely differently. In Dutch, this is way more simple. We are a lot more consistent with our orthography, because there is like a governing body of Dutch spelling, when there isn't one for English, because English is spoken way more. And one of the rules is that a vowel letter can be pronounced either open or tense or lax. And the rules for that are quite simple. It is pronounced tense if it is at the end of a syllable. Well, that's actually the rule. It's pronounced tense if it's at the end of the syllable. But where is the end of the syllable? It's if the word ends. That's definitely the end of the syllable, clear. Or if you have a consonant and then another vowel, then you also definitely know that is the end of the syllable. So auto is pronounced as O, not as O, which is the lax version, because it's at the end of the word. And maken is pronounced as A and not as A, because it's it's at the end of syllable, maken. And you can see that because you have a vowel and a consonant and a vowel. And in Dutch, we always put the consonant at the start of the syllable. I think probably other languages do this differently, but in Dutch, we always do this. So the other way around is the vowels pronounced tense. If you have if it's not at the end of the syllable, so just in the middle or at the start, you do pronounce it lax. So here we have kennis. We have two N's here. So the syllable distribution is kind of like kennis, although these two N's kind of coalesce into one N sound. We don't say kennis, you say kennis. And het. Well, the syllable ends at the T, and then E is not at the end. So it is lax. Cool. Het. I won't go over all these pronunciations again. If you're interested, you can go to the website I made and the app I'm definitely making. It will be done before the end of the course, I promise. Which is only 2 weeks. Damn. Okay, I need to hurry up. A version will be done. But then you can practice that more. The diphthongs, very quickly. This is always worth repeating because it's difficult. So diphthongs sounds difficult, but there's just two vowel sounds that merge into kind of one, or you say them quickly after the other and it sounds like one new sound. But it's actually just two sounds after the other. This last one isn't really a diphthong because it's just one vowel sounds. Ooh, ooh. But this has two letters, so we kind of put it here to make it less confusing or more confusing. The other ones, they are diphthongs. These are not all the diphthongs in Dutch. There's so many. And English also has a shit ton of diphthongs. For instance, the word or like say, that's diphthong because you have a. You don't say se. That sounds totally not English. Almost every vowel in English is like diphthongized to something, and in Dutch as well. Like if you say zee in Dutch, you don't say zee, you say zee, zee. But those are pretty straightforward, and you kind of learn them, and they aren't difficult. These are difficult because they are two letters which you think make a sound, but then they make a different sound. So we have E and U. So maybe if you think of how that would sound, maybe A and then U, EU, No, incorrect. Maybe the short versions. Oh, oh, no, incorrect. It makes a completely different sound. It starts. It's weirdly. It starts from and then goes to u. Oh, oh, oh. Kind of like it would say u, h, and then u. Oh. That's just how to pronounce it. I have this thing in brackets here because in Belgium they leave that out. They just say and if you're ever in Belgium and you want to impress them with your great Flemish pronunciation, you can leave that out, but it doesn't really matter. Then this one is pretty close to how you would actually say it, but not really how you would expect it, because it's the short version of the E and then the long version of the I. So it's E and then E. A. Fantastic. If you're German, you will be very likely to pronounce this as I, which is close, but no cigar. And of course, you can just pronounce this I. No one cares. Then this one, ow, is pretty simple. The same as English OW, how, but then a bit shorter, ow. And then everyone's favorite, ow. Technically, you start here at a French like an oeuvre, bad French, and then go to u, o, but the u is already difficult enough. And if you're not French, then making an is maybe also how do we get there? So I developed a cheat where if you start with a, which might also be difficult if you're again not Dutch or don't speak languages as a, and then go to u, then it sounds correct. So you have a and then u, ow, ow. A lot of people pronounce this as ow, like the one below, which makes sense because those are sounds that English, for instance, has. It goes from a to u, ow. But the difference is that ow, all the sounds get pronounced in the front of your mouth, and in ow, they all get pronounced in the back. So from ow, you have a, and then to u, ow, ow. And from ow, you start at a, which is in the front of your mouth, and u is also in the front. Ow, ow. All right. Enough over explanation. If you're ever worried about this again, don't. Okay, numbers. I think you guys nail numbers. Easy. Hebben and heeft. You know this. You know this. If I say you know this and you don't know this, please let me know. Again, feel very free. I'm happy to repeat things, but otherwise I go on tangents again and over-explain things. I guess this. Nah. Just useful to look at from time to time. Oh yeah, what are the pronouns again? Ik, mij, mijn, jij, jou, jou, hij, hem, zijn, zij, haar, haar, wij, ons, ons, jullie, 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 en zij, hen, hun. Not very complicated. Unfortunately, no gender neutral pronouns in Dutch, although people sometimes use hen or die, which is the pointing word, demonstrative. And so I think that one is the most common now. That people say, oh yeah, die, zij, dat, blah, 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 because that makes grammatical more sense than hen. And that works. It only gets kind of complicated then if you have the possessive of that, but you can say diens, which is the possessive of that person. Yeah. Kind of unfortunate that we don't have a better, but I think that will catch on. It's okay enough. Just like they in English was kind of weird for people at first, but now totally normal. All right, present simple. I think you know this. Just how to do things. Oh. Yeah, de and het. Did you know? Did we have those words? Word order. This is worth going over slightly, briefly. In general, in Dutch, okay, wait, I'll put it on a different slide so you don't get distracted by the slide, because the slide is a bit oversimplified, but you're smart cookies, so I'll give you a bit more complicated explanation. In Dutch, you can think of the sentence as being construed of three parts: the left part, the middle part, and the right part, or the start, the middle, and the end. Doesn't really matter. I will use those interchangeably. In the start part, you have the subject and the verb, usually, or almost always. And sometimes you have another word that gets put in front, like a question word or an adverb, or a connective. And when that happens, you just invert the subject and the verb, and then everything is fine. And that is just the start part. That's kind of the simple part. Then you have the middle, which is the kind of Wild West of the Dutch sentence. Here we put only two kinds of things. We put the adverbs and the objects of the sentence. But the adverbs and objects, they just kind of, sometimes they kind of do whatever they want, you know? Sometimes objects go in front of the adverbs, and sometimes they go after. Usually they go after. And that is always correct to put objects like after the adverbs. Adverbs are things like yesterday, in a bit, in my room, things that describe time, manner, or place. And those things can be in somewhat of a order of your choosing. We're not as strict with that. No, we're as strict with that as English. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that time almost always goes in front of the other things. So if I say, I ate a carrot yesterday in my room. So in English, that word order is very different. But in Dutch, you would say, ik at, so that's the start, gisteren in mijn kamer een wortel. I ate yesterday in my room a carrot, literal translation. But you wouldn't say, ik at in mijn kamer gisteren een wortel. That sounds kind of odd. Other adverbs like quickly, genuinely, things that end on ly, that describe the manner in which something is done, they go kind of sort of wherever they want in combination with the place adverb, but they go after the time. So that,
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm not sure whether it is happening only on my screen, but your slide is fixed at the N.
Yes, indeed. I did that on purpose, so that you wouldn't be distracted by the other slide, which does say something about word order, but says something different than what I'm saying right now. So otherwise, you would have two explanations and then whatever. So that is a bit more difficult. I apologize. So you have to reconstruct what I'm saying with my words. But if that's not working, then maybe I should just wrap this up quickly.
No, yeah, please.
Cool. The other things in the sentence, then after the object and the adverbs, we have the right part. And then we just have kind of the miscellaneous category, where we just throw everything that we don't really know where to put, just like prefixes of other things, or objects that don't, extra objects or whatever. We put in there. Niet goes there often. And then we have the other verbs category. So, and that's the most important thing I want you to take away from this. But you do this very well. That's very good. But sometimes in intermediate course, that is the thing that goes wrong the most often, in sentence order at least. Otherwise, they're perfect. Is that people have the tendency not to put the other verbs with the main verb of the sentence, because you do that in English, right? If I say I want to ride a pony, you don't say I want a pony to ride, that means something completely different. That doesn't mean completely different, but it's not how you would say it. I want to ride a pony. That's just the normal way of saying it. But in Dutch, you always put these infinitives at the end. And also, as we saw with the other examples, the thing that is attached to the present perfect, the past participle. So you saw een grote leeuw is uit de dierentuin ontsnapt. This ontsnapt is also a verb or derived from a verb. These are things like done or became or escaped, literally, the things with a D at the end. But in Dutch, in English, you also put these close to the verb, and in Dutch, you put those at the end as well. And that is roughly how you would do word order in Dutch. I can send you a link for a very comprehensive web page, which goes over a lot of Dutch word order, if you are interested. Just know that you don't need to know this. You just need to have heard this. That is most of the grammar here. I just want to know that you have this in the back of your mind a bit, so that when people say sentences to you, as they tend to do, you kind of, well, you don't know, but you at least kind of feel like, yeah, I've heard Thomas rant about that at some point. That makes sense. And then when you try to speak on your own, outside of this safe bubble I've crafted here for you in the real world, and try to make a sentence, that maybe you remember at some point, yeah, I do that. And then after a while, this will become completely automated. The best thing, of course, is to just hear a lot of Dutch sentences instead of trying to construct one on the fly, because that will take so much time. Maybe if you're writing, you have the time for that. When you're speaking, every second counts.
Thomas?
Yes.
Can I ask one thing about the example that you had before with eating the carrot in your room?
Yes.
And I was wondering whether you can put the room at the end of the sentence and the carrot before. So just like in English, because you said that I was surprised that the carrot comes at the end, because in German you would more naturally say the room at the end, I think. Yeah. And I don't know, I was wondering.
Ik had gisteren de wortel in mijn kamer. So you can put that in the room at the end, but not really if it is. So that's the thing that I kind of shielded you from. Whether a noun is definite or indefinite kind of changes where you put it. So de wortel, the carrot, you would not really do that. So you can't say ik at gisteren de wortel in mijn kamer. You can. It's not wrong. It's okay. Maybe it's even correct because place modifiers work a bit weirdly. But you would more naturally. Okay, now this is indeed because my example is a bit annoying because place modifiers are weird. But in general, with the things, you would not do that. But with ik at een wortel gisteren in mijn kamer. That is the most natural way to say it. And that does make a difference, and that is very annoying. But it is not wrong to say ik at gisteren in mijn kamer een wortel. And that's why I said that.
Okay.
But for a lot of cases, you can put it like that. And I think almost always here your German intuition will be right. So just apply that. I think that's way easier than trying to theoretically work this out. Just apply this intuition you have from German to Dutch. And if it doesn't work out, you'll know this after a while.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question. All right. Question words. You have a list of those in your booklet. I won't repeat them. Modal verbs. This is kind of what I repeated in a bit, just a while ago, about putting the verb at the end. If you have a normal sentence, ik heb een biertje, I have a beer, and you want to spice it up, oh, no, that's not how you do it. You just want to say something relating to you having a beer, like I want to have a beer, for instance. In English, you put to have after want, but in Dutch you put to have at the end. You say, I want a beer to have. You say, ik wil een biertje hebben, not ik wil hebben een biertje. If you say, ik wil hebben een biertje, you have probably already had enough beers. But yeah, these auxiliary verbs, the modal verbs, sorry, they are just useful to know. Kunnen, moeten, willen, zullen, and mogen. The only thing I want to add is willen does not mean will, but it means want. Will is zal. That's that always tripped me up when I was learning English. So I imagine that learning Dutch will also trip you up if you aren't used to English, I guess. Yes. Yeah, these in the past tense they work a little bit differently, because a lot of English auxiliary verbs, they are kind of modal verbs. They're a bit weird, like could, and should and would, because some of those they don't have like a real direct correlate in the present. So could, the present simple of could is not always can, but it's more like be able to. And so in Dutch, in order to get the same, we use an auxiliary verb for auxiliary verbs. Namely, we say, we saw the word could, which is not, which can sometimes be the past tense of kunnen, namely konden, but it can also be the past tense of zullen plus kunnen. So it would be zou kunnen, which also means could. But that's very complicated. That's actually the topic of the whole topic of the intermediate course today. So if you are for some reason interested in that, you can join that. But I won't do that now. Just forget I said that. No, it's a little teaser. Let's put it like that. Little teaser. Yeah, being polite, useful to know. It's in your booklet. These are words. I usually don't like repeating words because you can look up words. Plurals, pretty straightforward. These, yeah, this maybe, I mentioned this in the recap of the homework. So in Dutch, we have a lot of different auxiliary verbs for indicating position and not just the word is. So in English, you like to use the word is. In Dutch, we have all these words that kind of relate to how the thing is being at the moment. So we have staan for things that are like kind of upright. We have liggen for things that are kind of more horizontal than vertical. We have zitten for things that are like equally horizontal and vertical. And then we have hangen for things that are hanging. And then we have zijn for things that it's kind of ambiguous what their shape is, or we just are feeling lazy and don't want to use any of the others. It's useful to know. Again, it's never wrong to use is, but if you want to sound cooler, you use staan and liggen and zitten. Staan, liggen, and zitten are also used, another teaser, as auxiliary verbs for the Dutch continuous. So in English, for the continuous, you just use is as an auxiliary verb. I am working on my thesis, or I'm not working on my thesis right now. In Dutch, you can use is with a weird construction, or what's more common is that people use staan, liggen, and zitten. So ik sta uit te leggen. I am teaching, or I'm standing teaching, or I stand to teach. That's, I guess, the most literal translation. That's how you would make a continuous in Dutch. But again, this is a teaser for the intermediate course. Clocks. You're great with numbers. You're great with clocks. The past tense. I think we covered this in the last recap quite extensively. I won't go over it again, unless you would like to. So this is on you. Just know there's a lot of irregular verbs. These, now you're very good at this as well. So you add the E when you have a de word or a het word or a de word with un in front of it, and otherwise you don't add any. Weird rule, but it is the rule. Yeah, these are some unrendered characters. Nice. Demonstratives. Yes, this is maybe useful to. I mean, yeah, we have this, these, that, and those in English, and in Dutch we have deze, dit, and die and dat. In English, we distinguish between things that are singular and plural, and close and far away. And in Dutch, we distinguish between things that are de of het and close and far away. That's just a difference. So deze is for close things with de, and dit is for close things with het, and die is for far away things with de, and dat is for far away things with het. The main useful thing to know is that plurals, again, are always de. So you use die always for plurals. That's a easy one. But this is also slowly, it's not yet like accepted to disregard that, to just only use deze and die. But it is slowly becoming. I would, if I would make a prediction, I think like maybe in 30 years, maybe we'll get rid of dit and dat. But maybe that's wrong. It's more common with yeah, who does this? I don't know. People who don't have Dutch as a first language. They usually use deze and die, and also use de for everything, which I think is a great development. I think we should just do that. Why do we need 2 articles? Ridiculous. All right. I think this is if this is the last part, I will spend some time on it. If not, no. Oh, yes. So Quinten. Oh, yeah. Oh, someone unmuted to ask a question?
Yeah, actually, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Could you maybe repeat the one with the adding the E to the adjective?
Yes, of course.
Because I read the explanation in the booklet, but I actually still don't get it.
No, that's fair. It is a bit of a stupid rule. So the main thing to note is that sometimes in Dutch, for adjectives, we add E at the end. Just, I don't know, why not? Just to be annoying. So if you have a word like the red cat, you would say de rode kat. If you have het bruine, the brown horse, it would be het bruine paard. But if you're not describing a specific one, but just a general thing, like use un instead of de or het, then the rule is slightly different. So for words that are de, you also add the E. So we have again de rode kat, the red cat. A red cat would be een rode kat. Cool, clear here. But for het words, for some reason we don't add an E here. It's really stupid, and I mean I didn't know that we did this until before I started taking this course, because I was reading a book about someone who had learned Dutch. And he was just really ranting about, this is such a stupid rule, why did they do that? And all the Dutch people don't know that they're doing this. And I was like, damn, I didn't know that we were doing this. So, again, we have het bruine paard, the brown horse. But you don't say een bruine paard, you say een bruin paard. Een bruin paard. And that's weird, but that is the rule. Again, I think it would be great if we just got rid of all the het words and just had de words. So it would be just een bruine paard and de bruine paard. That would be great. But unfortunately, that is not the reality we live in yet. I haven't been able to infiltrate the Dutch Language Institute yet. But if I do, you'll bet.
But when do you know when to do it for just the and het, or is it all the time? Because the way I understood it now is the only time you don't do it is when it's a ein form of a het word.
Yes, that is indeed correct.
So everything else you add the e?
Yes. Yeah, and the other case you don't is here at the bottom is the predicative use. When you say the something is something, then you don't add an e. So if the kat is rood, you don't say the kat is rode. You say het paard is bruin, you don't say het paard is bruine.
And also if it's ein.
Yes,
Oh.
een paard is bruin or een kat is rood.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. This is a bit of a weird rule. So this is understandable. This is a bit strange. All right. Then I just very... now we're all out of time. Would you like to talk about niet some more? Or would you like to break? I can see some nods for niet. Okay. I will briefly do it because I realized looking through these slides that these slides had a better explanation of how to use niet than I did last time, which is a good job me from the past. Apparently I did have a okay explanation. So geen is kind of straightforward. If you have just a sentence with niet, you want to negate a sentence that has an indefinite article, noun, sorry, such as een, some, 3 horses, some horses, a horse, those things, or horses, and you have a sentence with that, say er staan paarden in de wei, horses are standing in the field, and then someone else looks and they're gone and says, there aren't any horses in the field. Er staan geen paarden in de wei. Then you use geen. Ta-da, easy. Here are some examples of that. Ik heb een jas, ik heb geen jas. Ik heb er één, ik heb er geen. Pieter spreekt Nederlands, Pieter spreekt geen Nederlands. Ik heb schroevendraaiers, ik heb geen schroevendraaiers. So you can say ik spreek geen Nederlands. You can also say ik spreek niet Nederlands. Of ik spreek Nederlands niet, but ik spreek geen Nederlands. It's better, because Nederlands is a noun. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is also a cheeky one. For some words, you place an n in front of it to make it a negation. So something becomes nothing by putting an n in front of it. Ik heb iets gekocht. I bought something. I bought nothing. Ik heb niets gekocht. You probably would say I didn't buy anything, but whatever. Ik heb iemand gezien. I saw someone. Ik heb niemand gezien. I saw no one. Ik ben ergens geweest. I went somewhere. Ik ben nergens geweest. I went nowhere. In Dutch, we don't have this any modifier, which means that some Dutch people in English will not use that correctly and just say everybody and anybody. They get confused often because we don't have that difference in Dutch. We don't have this anybody, which is a pretty useful word, you know. All right, and then the niet. This is the rule that is probably most useful for you to know. It's not the most complete, but it is almost in like almost all cases it works. So where to put niet? The big question. If there is a direct object in verb, or like a transitive verb, and you have an object there. Transitive verb is something that has an object. I eat the carrot. You noun the object. Then you put it. This is rule 2. Sorry, you put it after the object. Ik eet de wortel niet. If you don't have a direct object, you just put it after the verb. Erik drinkt niet. Eric doesn't drink. Erik drinkt het biertje niet. Eric doesn't drink the beer. And that's That works in almost every case. I kind of checked that, and it's like, this works way better than what I said last time, which was like, I put it in front of the thing you want to negate. This works almost always. So after the verb, if there's no direct object, after the direct object, if there is one. Now, there's one case where this doesn't hold, but this is a very clear case, which is if you want to very specifically say that you're not doing something, but doing something else. So again, we have Erik drinkt het biertje niet. That means Erik doesn't drink the beer, nothing else. But if you say Erik isn't drinking the beer, but he's drinking something else, then you can put it in front of het biertje. Erik drinkt niet het biertje, maar het wijntje. You can also do this with words, but you don't have to. So if I want to say I don't speak Dutch, but I do speak English. Ik spreek geen Nederlands, maar ik spreek wel Engels. Ik spreek Engels. But you could also say ik spreek niet Nederlands, maar ik spreek Engels. That's also fine. And you can kind of pick there. It kind of means the same. So that's the clearest I can make neat. It is kind of annoying, but this is the clearest I can do it. So after the verb, if there is an object, if there's no object, after the object, if there is one. Cool. Then that was the end of the recap. Here's some links for more information about word order. The first one is about neat, but the page you come has so many links about word order. If you want to know anything about word order, go there. And the second one, I don't know what it is. Oh, it's an exercise, I think. All right. Let's have a break. Went for too long again, clearly. Let's do full break. 10. No, let's do short. 5 past. Okay. Cool. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to ask. Now I will assign you Duolingo homework for once again.